morning, and thank you all for coming out today. I especially want to thank our federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies who have joined with us today. When I took office 100 days ago or so, I committed to cracking down on the violent crime that has plagued our city. I committed to bring in violent felons and those who would do harm to the people of Indianapolis. I committed to not only be tough on crime, but be smart on crime as well. We still have a long road ahead, but I'm pleased to announce this week that members of the Get Money gang have been arrested in Indianapolis by a joint law enforcement task force. These federal and local officials, using the latest technology and resources, have been able to remove many of the city's most dangerous individuals from our streets. The task force commitment and dedication to keep Indianapolis a safe and secure community for all is proof that we will continue to stand up against the enormous array of the world's ills. But the effort does not end here. Our system works. We know this. The city of Indianapolis and Marion County are going to continue to find and prosecute violent criminals in our city and keep them from harming our citizens and visitors. Indianapolis is a great city, and it's going to stay that way. Through collaborative police efforts, our officers will work across jurisdictional lines for the greater good of this city, of this great city. But we cannot do this alone. As I've said time and time again, we need the help of our community. Starting later this month, new community beat patrols will begin in some of our city's most underserved neighborhoods. These officers will know the names and faces of the residents and the business owners of these beats. The residents and business owners will know the names of these officers. For too long, many in our community have harbored a distrust of our police officers. Through this new system, beat-oriented, community-based, we will rebuild the trust between our great police force and our great community. We want our citizens to know that they can count on and trust all law enforcement officials, federal, state, and local. As more trust is built, as more technology is utilized, as more partnerships are forged, our streets will be safer. The people in our city who traffic in drugs and guns will not terrorize our citizens. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not be prisoners of our fears. We will not allow these drug pushers, these gun slingers, these violent, vicious criminals to harm our city. Too many people have worked to make Indianapolis the city that it is today. I stand before you asserting without equivocation that the buck stops on the desk of the mayor's office. I will not rest. Chief Riggs will not rest. Prosecutor Curry will not rest until our city is the safest in the country, until every citizen feels safe and secure and welcome. On that, you have my word. For more specifics about the great work that law enforcement at the federal level with our partners at the FBI, and certainly the great work of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, more specifics of the great work that's been done today, I'm proud to introduce Marion County Prosecutor Terry Curry. Terry.
Thank you. I'm going to just touch briefly upon the investigation itself and the charges which have resulted from that investigation. As set forth in the probable cause, this was a long-term investigation that was led primarily by the Safe Streets Task Force, which is made up of including agencies, the FBI and IMPD, and Ed Wheely will speak to that from the FBI here in a second. These sort of investigations are tedious, long-term investigation that requires disciplined commitment by the officers involved. As set forth in the probable cause, this investigation included investigative techniques such as monitoring jail calls, wiretap, as well as traditional police investigation. The investigators were assisted by deputy prosecutors in our office, and I would specifically acknowledge Deputy Prosecutors Andrea Props, Rick Frank, Lindsay Holden, and Raquel Ramirez, who have been involved in assisting in this investigation since day one. As a result of the investigation, as set forth in the materials that have been provided to you, 15 individuals have been charged, 9 of whom are in custody at this time. 3 of those individuals, Dion Orr, David Gibbs, and Landon Tompkins, were already in custody with other pending charges. Orr has a pending case as a serious violent felon in possession of a firearm and dealing marijuana. David Gibbs has a pending case as a serious violent felon in possession of a firearm and dealing marijuana. Landon Tompkins has a pending murder, aggravated battery, and robbery case. In addition, 6 other individuals were taken into custody in the last couple of days, and 6 others remain at large at this time and are being sought. Just a couple other matters I would note. As believed by the investigators for some period of time and as set forth in the probable cause, it was believed that the shootings in particular that were occurring in Butler-Tarkington had arisen as a part of a tit-for-tat retaliation that started with a fight at the Indiana State Fair. And that is summarized in the probable cause affidavit. And in addition, as noted in the probable cause, one individual who was formerly associated with this same group was Michael Pugh, who has been convicted of multiple offenses in the violent home invasions which occurred on Spring Mill and at 71st and College. With that,
Thank you. I just would like to say this has been a very collaborative effort between IMPD and the FBI. I would say it was textbook, and all information and all resources between the agencies were shared. I want to thank the prosecutor's office for the enormous amount of support that they played in this investigation and prosecution. And then on that note, I'd like to especially recognize the detectives, the officers, the agents, the SWAT team members. I can stand up here and talk about the case, but they were the ones that were out every night till midnight, 2 in the morning, through the holidays, weekends, made a lot of sacrifices, and it was that kind of commitment and that kind of work ethic that brought about this prosecution. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, sir. Good morning. If you remember, on January the 2nd, we gathered in this room. The mayor put together a law enforcement summit. We talked about collaboration, and it wasn't a week or 2 later that we all gathered to talk about this very case. And one of the things that I'm pleased about is that we looked at the challenges that every case brings. We talked about those, and everyone in that room worked together collectively. And one of the things that we all agreed upon was we were going to listen to our detectives. And we listened to our detectives. We listened to the officers in the North District under Commander Bailey's command, and they got this arrest for us. They deserve a great deal of credit. Sometimes they get overlooked for the work that they do each and every day. They get overlooked. Sometimes they have cases that seem to be insurmountable with very little information, but they continue to dig each and every day. And I think that I would be remiss as chief if I didn't take a moment to sincerely thank them in the Detectives Bureau under Chief Taylor's leadership, and then also Commander Bailey under his leadership in the North District for that work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but you're seeing a collaborative approach. I've never seen this type of collaboration in the history of my 26 years of law enforcement, and it continues to grow every day. And we need it to grow to deal with some of the issues that the mayor and I have very openly and publicly talked about on numerous occasions. Thank you for being here today. Mr. Mayor.
Be happy to take questions for anyone. I just simply want to reemphasize and underscore what the chief has said. On January the 2nd, we talked about providing the people of Marion County not only a horizontal law enforcement strategy, but also a vertical law enforcement strategy that took into account and utilized to the fullest extent our federal and state partners. And as the chief has indicated, that type of collaboration is unprecedented. I also want to underscore my thanks for the prosecutor's office and the good work that Terry Curry and his staff have done in this regard. I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge not only the FBI, but the assistance that this investigation has received from the U.S. Attorney's Office and U.S. Attorney Josh Minkler in particular. So with that, we'd be happy to answer appropriately any questions you might have.
Joe, how do you do this with the backdrop of obviously getting the bad guys off the street in neighborhoods is always good for the citizens of Indianapolis, but we've also seen, just this past weekend alone, 6 people dead, you had a young person shot, looks like accidental gun violence.
Yeah.
What do you tell the citizens of Indianapolis that, hey, we are getting the job done, we are working to make the city safer, when they see 6 people shot on the first really warm weekend, and we got a long way to go this spring and summer?
Well, what I say is that to reassure them that we, as a collaborative law enforcement community, are doing everything that we can to make sure that our neighborhoods and the streets in those neighborhoods remain safe. To be colloquial, Abdul, I'd say the cavalry is on the way. Chief Riggs has, at the very outset, and I echo his sentiments in this regard, has said the dial is not going to be moved overnight. We have had a systemic challenge here in the city of Indianapolis for the last 2 or 3 years. And while I truly believe progress is being made on mornings like this morning, it gives me great hope that we are making that progress. I would say, in addition, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the chief's deployment of these community-based, beat-oriented police officers, I think, will be an important step forward, not only in proactive policing, but also in encouraging the community to cooperate fully with the police department.
Chief Riggs, a lot has been made the last few months since the control has started last fall. The police department needing help from the community, and at the same time, the community claiming the police department was not doing enough vis-a-vis self-public charges, and how you address both of those.
Well, I would say that I want to be careful because I don't want to offend anyone in the community, but I will tell you this, that because you give information to a detective doesn't mean the information is going to lead to an arrest. There's a U.S. Constitution, there's policies and procedures. We can't lock someone up just because we think someone committed a crime. So getting a tip and having the evidence to fully prosecute is 2 different things. Having a tip and having someone that's willing to come and to testify in court is difficult, as the prosecutor would tell you as well. So we do listen. That's one of the reasons that when I became chief, I made a 3rd assistant chief. I made that decision right after Mayor Hogsett announced that I was going to be chief, because I wanted to have better collaboration with the citizens that we serve and with the victims. Let's remember, so far this year, and our department does not get enough credit for this, we have already solved 3 homicides from 2014 and 5 or 6 homicides from 2015. We never give up on a case. We continue to work those cases. You're seeing our clearance rates increase. As far as some of the things we have planned for the future, remember, we have 65 new officers that are going to be sworn in by the mayor on Friday. Traditionally, what happens is all those officers go to patrol, and then the department pulls a lot. They look at it as having 65 positions that they can work with. Those positions are pulled out to backfill in other areas. We have set a new day in Indianapolis. We're going to base our decisions on our personnel allocation based on 3 principles. Does it reduce crime? Does it reduce the fear of crime? Does it enhance public safety? When we asked ourselves that question, we decided out of the 65 officers that in those positions we have, that a total of 61 will be assigned to the patrol division to go into these beats and help. And then the other 4 will be going to an aggravated assault unit to deal specifically with those 50% of the non-fatal shootings where suspects will not cooperate with the police. We need assistance from the community still.
Do you get the help from the community in doing this basic police work without community help?
There's some community help, but a lot of it was police work and roll up the sleeves and using information and background history. I'm not going to get too much into the case because it's an ongoing investigation, but certainly we'll take any information from citizens on any criminal case that we're working.
Have you been able to make any definitive connections between this gang, these arrests, and the killings of Deshaun Swanson, Wade Howard,
I'm not going to comment on a current investigation and one that's being prosecuted. I'm just not allowed to do so at this time.
Chief, in here it does say, this gang in policing linked to several high-profile incidents and homicides. Are you able to provide specifics on?
I'm not going to do it unless the prosecutor wants. I think at this time we're wanting to focus on holding these people accountable. But I will tell you those investigations continue, and they will continue. If people have information, we certainly need that sent to us. If you look at Butler Tarkington in particular, it's been a very safe place of our city for years. And then last year there was a 2-month period that there was a lot of violence. Since then, there has not been a lot of violence in Butler Tarkington, and we're very pleased with that. And I thank Commander Bailey and his men and women, and also the community members that have worked alongside of Commander Bailey.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things you talked about was stepping up these warrant searches, going after the bad guys. There's been, I wouldn't necessarily call it pushback from some segments of the African American community wondering if this will lead to either profiling or maybe unfairly targeting a certain segment of the population. A couple of counselors have, voiced very loudly about sort of kind of stuff like it's borderline racist. How do you strike that balance? Going after the bad guys, but also, letting the community know we're not unfairly targeting one segment of the population versus others in the city where crime may be happening.
Well, I think that first and foremost, there was misunderstanding about exactly who would be the targets. These are folks who have warrants for serious crimes and felonies. As it relates to community participation and the counselors themselves, just this past weekend, it's my understanding, at several churches throughout the Marion County, a safe surrender opportunity was afforded. So, frankly, rather than be critical, I think that the counselors and other pastors throughout the community have seen this as an opportunity to roll up their sleeves and get involved in assisting us in taking off the streets serious felons who have warrants outstanding. Chief, do you want to add to that in any way?
I can add that a lot of times when we talk about our approach, people misconstrue it and they think about the past in other cities. Remember what we've been saying is that even in our highest crime areas, the people that live there aren't necessarily the ones committing the crime. Part of the beat policing philosophy is for officers to be there working with the community, talking to community, and eradicating those that perpetuate violence in that community, not having mass arrests, but quality arrests. The other thing I may point out is we've had 3 meetings now with local clergy. We started with a Chief 4-Day program to allow local clergy to see shoot, don't shoot scenarios, hear from our training instructors, see what we're dealing with in the community. We had a national forum on community and police relationships where we brought in some pretty prominent individuals. And then just yesterday, we met with a group of clergy and talked about some of the issues that we're facing. And the constant theme of this is how are we going to work together? And I've asked the clergy of this community, all clergy, to assist us in many cases, including as we are at major crime scenes or where we may have a scene where young people are getting out of hand, like recently at a roller rink or downtown, for them to be here and help work with the police department to keep order, to facilitate information. They have a key place in here, and I think people are seeing now that what we're talking about is aggressive policing, but it's laser-like and focused on those causing problems and not mass arrests.
So the prosecutor, the last couple of years, INPD with the prosecutor's office and the federal partners have made great success in taking out large criminal organizations and drug gangs. One of those is the Grundy Group. However, the recent dropping of murder
It is a setback only in the sense that it's required a dismissal of that single case. Their remaining conspiracy case against Richard Grundy and a number of the co-defendants remains pending, and we intend to go forward with that case.
Two cases now that basically been set aside regarding Grundy. One was the search of the house after the police pursued in January of 2015, and now this. So does this raise into doubt the question of the integrity and the quality of the entire investigation if you've already had to dismiss two of those?
No, the first dismissal on the one case was because of a suppression of a search warrant, which then, of course, excluded evidence that would have been admitted in that case. And the second one, as you well know, involved information that came to our attention regarding one of the key witnesses in that case. In terms of the quality investigation, no. I think all it does is point up what you have heard us discuss over and over and over, which is the significant challenges we face in prosecuting these sort of cases in terms of being able to retain witnesses, to be able to not have them recant, to not fail to show up. We just convicted 2 men of murder 2 weeks ago, where until the day of trial, we were not certain that the 2 victims of attempt murder would even show up. And if they did, what they would say. We managed to get them there. We had them testify, and we convicted 2 men of murder in the dice game situation that occurred about a year ago. So I think it merely points up the challenges that we face and gets to the point that we've made over and over, is how much we require the assistance of the community in addressing these problems. No, in terms of the quality investigation, this investigation alone, I think, highlights the progress we've made in attempting to dismantle the criminal organizations that have been operating for years here in Marion County.
Many of the folks arrested have prior convictions, be prior adult felonies, or just picked up in the sweep. But for some reason, Marion County, we have this bad habit of a lot of the bad guys serve a little bit of time and then they're just back out on the street again.
Well, I can't speak to any other than clearly Dion Orr and David Gibbs have prior felonies because that's why they have pending cases as a serious violent felon in possession of a firearm.
It looks like from the charges, they're fairly low-level felonies. Do you expect that this is just kind of the beginning, that these individuals will be charged with higher-level felonies connected to other cases?
Well, as Chief Riggs indicated, this continues to be an ongoing investigation, so certainly that is always the possibility. On the charges we filed in this case, we've also filed the gang enhancement, and so if we were to convict these individuals of the underlying charges and then convict them of the gang enhancement would double the sentence that they were to receive for the most serious felony, as well as to make that portion of the sentence non-suspendable.
Chief, what do you need members of the community to do to make the new beat system successful? Because I know a lot of the people in these neighborhoods, they're afraid to speak out.
Right, and this is an example here. Let's talk about this case. We have individuals in custody. They're going to be in jail. The prosecutor has a good record of being very aggressive here. We know there are individuals that know things about this case that may be fearful. This is a good time to call us, talk to us, even if you call us anonymously. And I know people are fearful, and I'm hoping that as we put more officers on the street, and we want to expand this beat process, but when you look at the beats are where 45% of our homicides occurred last year. And then we want to grow that. And what we're hoping is that they have this one-on-one relationship with the community where people feel more comfortable speaking with the police. But here's the danger when you don't speak with the police. We talk about the danger of talking to the police. We'll do our best to work with you and keep that quiet and protect you. But at the end of the day, if you don't talk to the police, one thing's for certain, the criminal element will continue to grow, and your family's life and your life will be in danger if you live in these areas. That's why we're putting officers in these areas. That's why we've worked so hard in the first 100 days to make this possible. That's why, quite frankly, some other parts of the department are going to do without, because we need to have more officers on the street having true community policing, not just talking about it.
How can you continue to do long-term, complex, manpower-heavy investigations like this if you're going to meet the mayor's mandate to put more narcotics detectives on street corners handling those neighborhood problems? Because those would be the guys, as you mentioned, that would have been sitting on the wire at midnight, but they can't do that now because they're out
Because the mayor has a hiring plan that's going to put us at the highest levels of IMPD officers since merger. And that's going to give us some more flexibility. The other part of that, Russ, is we're going to sit down as a staff and continue to have those tough discussions about, back to what I said before, where do we assign people that reduces crime, reduces the fear of crime, enhances public safety? Obviously, gun and drugs are somewhere we need to be focused. We will continue to be focused on long-term investigations, but we need to give the commanders, like Commander Bailey here, more tools to fight narcotics on the street level that they do not have. That's something that the commanders have asked. We're looking for those resources now and how to restructure that long term. Don't be surprised, though, with new classes if we continue to put more officers on the street and put some other officers on the street to do those street-level work as well. And something that I've learned in my years is when you have more people doing some street-level, they're going to be gathering information that those high-level detectives are working those big cases can utilize. So we're hoping this comes together. You know, we have a police department that did not have hiring for many years. The mayor's committed to that, even with a structural budget deficit, because we need that here in the city, and it's going to give us some of those options that we desperately need.
Thank you so much.
Could anyone comment about the 2-year-old that was shot and killed overnight? Any thoughts?
I'll say something. I don't know all the case on this, and we will look into this. But let me just say this, and I'm not going to get into a Second Amendment debate. I want to make that clear now. But I will say this. It's a tragic situation for the family. Anyone that has a firearm, we tell our officers this: lock your firearms up. Make sure that they are safe and secure. Tragedies can occur, and it's hard to believe that this could potentially occur to such a young person. And I did not realize that this could occur until I had a gun safety class years ago, and they showed demonstrations of what young children can do with weapons. It's remarkably scary, I will just be quite frank. So never underestimate the ability of a child to fire a weapon, no matter how young they are.